नमस्ते। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। Om. Namaste to all. Let me introduce myself first, because for most of you who are following this page, you may not be knowing about me. My name is Jai Shankar, and I am a Shishya of Swami Dayananda Saraswati of Arsha Vidya Gurukulam. Swami Dayananda Saraswati was a great Vedantin, and Swamiji conducted many Vedanta courses and created a lot of teachers. So I am one of the Vedanta teachers now. I attended a residential course with Swamiji, stayed with my Guru, and studied Vedanta and Sanskrit. So before that, I was a student in IIT BHU, and later on I was working with Tata Steel, and I was also working in US, where I met my Guru. And then I came back to India to study Vedanta with my Guru. And since then I have also been teaching now for more than 20 years. And I am also working as a software professional. Now I am settled in my native village near Kanyakumari, and I am building a Gurukulam myself as per the wishes of my Guruji. So this is just a brief introduction about myself. Now let us come to the topic, which is about science and spirituality. Now science, as we know it, is about understanding the world around us. Science can be called as a quest for truth, but mostly objective truth. So we are trying to understand things which we encounter in this world. We try to see what are the laws which are actually governing these physical objects, and try to also understand their fundamental nature. What is the truth? So in this, we keep on going deeper and deeper. Like you see a pot is nothing but clay, but clay itself is nothing but molecules, silicon molecules, like that we can go. Then molecules themselves are atoms themselves are then atomic particles are there. So like this we are trying to understand the fundamental building blocks of this physical world. So mostly science is about that. Science also tries to study the subject, but even that they want to study objectively. So mostly they are trying to study the subject. Psychology is there as a branch of science. But even there, they are trying to study the psychology of a person through somebody's behavior or through some observable phenomena like brain waves. Like that, they have their own methodology in which scientific knowledge is being created, you can say, is being discovered. Because all knowledge is already there. Really speaking, if we understand Ishvara as one who has all knowledge, then all knowledge is already there. We are only removing our ignorance and discovering the knowledge which is already there. But all that is part of science. So science is basically using sense perception and inference, you can say, to arrive at certain truths, scientific truths. Again, they have their own boundary conditions also. What is valid in a certain condition need not be valid in some other condition. So what is valid in the macro world, those laws may not be valid in a quantum world, let us say. But both are one world only, part of one world, but still what laws are applicable at one level need not be applicable at some other level. So all scientific knowledge also are subjected to certain conditions. So science basically depends on sense perception or enhanced sense perception, we can say, like telescope and microscope, etc. So many equipment have come now which can detect so many things, and based on that then there are theories are there, inference, they do different types of inference, let us say, to arrive at certain knowledge and truth. So there is a scientific method also. Means any scientific theory is proposed as a hypothesis. The hypothesis should be falsifiable. Okay. So I can claim something that whenever I raise the pressure by so much, the temperature also will go up. Now, this can be experimentally proved or disproved. That means it is a falsifiable hypothesis, and then they can do experimental design, and through experiments somebody can either prove the theory. The theory has to predict, as a hypothesis, the theory has to predict certain outcomes, and those can be verified experimentally, and then whether that hypothesis then can be accepted as a theory, valid theory. So this is the scientific method in which hypotheses are postulated, and those hypotheses themselves are falsifiable, either they can be proved or disproved, and then experiments are used to prove or disprove a hypothesis, and once it is proved, it is accepted as a valid theory. Now this is the scientific method, and this is how knowledge about our world has been discovered. A lot of knowledge is there already. Everybody is standing on the knowledge which is already given to us by our forefathers, our ancestors. Now this is fine, but in this one thing is left out. What is that? Myself. So myself is taken for granted, that I am an individual who is subjected to certain limitations. As a human being, I only occupy my own body, my physical body, and also my ability to know also is limited. I can only know certain things. The more I know, the more I know about what I don't know also. My ignorance also is increasing along with my knowledge. So I am limited with reference to my physical abilities, what I can do with my body. I am limited with reference to what I can do with my mind also. I am limited with reference to what I can enjoy. How many things I can enjoy at the same time also is limited. So whichever way I look at myself, I take myself as a limited being, but the problem is this limitation is not acceptable to me. Fundamentally, this limitation is something experienced by everybody, because every human being is a self-conscious human being, and if you are conscious about yourself, you will also judge yourself. There is a self-judgment, and in my own judgment, I look at myself as a limited being, whichever way I look at myself. But the problem is that this limitation is not acceptable to me instinctively. this limitation is something which I struggle to get out of instinctively. That's why everybody wants to do something and accomplish something, gain something, in the hope that you can get out of some of these limitations. Okay? That's how the life goes on. But the problem with this is, how much ever you gain, how much ever you accomplish, you cannot get rid of your limitations. You are still the same limited individual who has many things with you, who has accomplished many things, let us say. Still you are the same limited individual with many things. By adding up finite things, it cannot become limitless or infinite. So this fundamental problem of limitation as an individual human being is there with me always. So I have to also now analyze and see the truth of myself, whether this is true or not. That is where spirituality comes into the picture. See, science is also a quest for truth, but it is mostly the quest for objective truth. But we also have to think of myself as a subject, as a conscious living being. What is the truth of myself? That has to be analyzed. And if we analyze that, as I told you, we find that we are limited in our own judgment. But that limitation is not acceptable to me also instinctively. So what do I do now? How do I solve this problem? I cannot solve this problem by accumulating more and more things. In fact, accumulating more things means it is again a problem. Who is going to maintain all the things which I accumulate? So that also is a problem actually. So there are only two options here. One is that I am a limited individual is my reality. I cannot do anything about it then, because the limited can never become the limitless by adding something to itself. How much ever you add, you can always say +1. So by adding limited things, you cannot become limitless or infinite. You cannot add finite things and achieve infinity. So if I am really limited, finite individual, I have no solution for my problem. But at least if that is my real nature, I should be able to accept it happily, correct? But that also is not happening. I am instinctively struggling out to get out of all these limitations. So then what is the other solution? That if I cannot become the limitless, means I have to already be the limitless. That is the only solution. I am already the limitless being who, due to ignorance, is taking oneself as somebody who is limited. So this is the other option, because limitlessness cannot be newly created in time. Limitless means it has to be limitless in time, in space, with reference to objects also. So I have to be always there, past, present, future. I have to be everywhere, and I have to be every object also. Is it possible? Is there anything like that? Is it even there in our experience to understand this? Means it is very much there, correct? We all create an entire dream world in which the dream space-time is yourself. All the dream objects are yourself only. And you are also there within that as an individual struggling. So this experience is not something new to us. Okay? So in reality, we are not really limited by this physical body or this space-time in which we find ourselves. As a conscious being, I transcend space-time. Space-time comes and goes. In deep sleep, there is no space-time. In dream, there is a totally new space-time. New world is there. So like that, in this waking also, whatever space-time I encounter, whatever the world I encounter, that doesn't really limit me. I, as a conscious being, is the reality. Whatever I encounter as this world is only names and forms. It's only an appearance in me. So this is the reality which one has to understand. But how do I understand this? Science is using a means of knowledge like sense perception and inference. But who is going to give me this knowledge? Means this knowledge cannot be acquired through perception or inference or through science or anything. That is why we require revelation for this. It has to be a revealed body of knowledge which can give me this knowledge, and that is what we call Veda. So in our tradition in India, we look upon the Veda as an independent means of knowledge, like how your eyes are a means of knowledge to know color. Now whatever color your eyes are revealing, even while you are watching this Facebook live, the letters live are written in white in a red background. What is reporting this knowledge to you? Your eyes are reporting that live is in white and its background is red. Now can this be proved by the ears? Ears are bringing to you the sound of my voice, but ears cannot prove whether this color is red or white. Can I know that by touching it? Means that also is not possible. Touch will not tell me what color it is. Can I taste it and know what color it is? I cannot know that. So like this, if you see, every means of knowledge is revealing to me something, a unique field, which can neither be proved nor be disproved by any other means of knowledge. Now science itself, if we take it as a body of knowledge which is based on perception and inference, that is scientific knowledge. That is one field of knowledge which we have. Entire scientific knowledge is based on perception and inference. But that is not good enough to know myself, because I cannot objectify myself and know. I am always the subject. I am always the witness consciousness. No. So who is going to show me my own reality? For that we require another means of knowledge. That another means of knowledge in our tradition is called Veda. Veda is made up of words, but it is also a valid means of knowledge. Whatever is revealed by the Veda is not available through any scientific method. It is not available through your perception or your inference. It is an independent means of knowledge. Whatever the Veda reveals, either the Veda reveals many things, not only about yourself. Of course, the main teaching of the Veda is to reveal what is your true nature and what is the reality of yourself. But before that, it is also revealing many things, many means and ends it is talking about. Some ends are known, like wealth, progeny. Some ends are unknown or unknowable, like heaven, Swarga. Veda is talking about Swarga. Swarga can neither be proved nor disproved. Understand that. If you take the Veda as a valid means of knowledge, you have to accept that Swarga is there. And Veda itself is giving you certain means. You do all these things, karma, and you can go to Swarga. But finally, Veda is also talking about your very nature. What is your reality? That part is called Vedanta. So those who are spiritual and want to know one's own reality has to take the Vedanta as the means of knowledge. But I do not have access to Vedanta. I don't know Sanskrit. If I read all the translations, books and all that, I am getting more confused. So what do I do? Means here only you have to have a guru again. Because the Vedanta as a means of knowledge has to be operated by a guru. Guru is one who already knows, who already has the entire vision of the Veda. Only the one who has the entire vision of a subject matter can even teach a portion of it properly. Otherwise, it's a catch-22 situation, because to even understand a particular portion of any subject matter, you should have the entire vision. And unless you add up all the portions, you will not have the entire vision. So this is a catch-22 problem, correct? So how are we going to solve it means you have to know it from somebody who already has this vision, and who knows how to teach it also. So one has to go to a guru. If you are a spiritual person and want to know the truth about yourself, you have also done some analysis by yourself. What is that analysis? That in my own vision, I am a limited person, but I cannot accept myself as a person with all these limitations. So my fundamental problem is one of self non-acceptance, born out of my own self-judgment that I am a limited being. So how do I get rid of this means I have no means of getting rid of this by just doing some activities and accomplishing certain things within this world. I will still be the same limited being. Then what is the only solution means our tradition comes here. You should have some, what we call in Sanskritam, apatata jnanam. Means some general knowledge, because in our tradition people are talking about dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So we talk about the pursuits of human beings and we categorize them into 4 categories. And dharma means you can say a life lived according to certain moral principles. Religious life also comes under dharma only. So we lead our lives. First we have to be a dharmika. Then only you can even talk about spirituality and all that. So the part of one being a dharmika is very important. That's a qualification in fact. One has to lead first a life of dharma. One has to have the maturity to do the right thing. And you cannot claim ignorance that I did not know what is right, wrong and all that. You have the responsibility of knowing what is right and wrong and doing the right thing in spite of your likes and dislikes. Because everybody, the psychology according to our Shastra is very simple. Human beings look upon themselves as limited beings. As wanting person means your wants are expressed as either likes or dislikes. So everybody is subjected to likes and dislikes. If these likes and dislikes are in alignment with what is right and wrong, then there is no problem. You are all spontaneously dharmic. But what you like is not according to what is right. It is illegal, immoral, all those problems are there, correct? And what you don't like is the right thing. Then there is a conflict. So how do we then resolve this? A mature person, in spite of one's likes and dislikes, will choose what is right. That is the good bargain in fact. Otherwise you are making a bad bargain in your life. Because whenever you do something wrong, you always know that it is wrong. That's why that is what we call a conscience. This conscience is there in everybody. You have to shut down your conscience and then do, because you are going along with your likes and dislikes. But in the process, your own self-esteem will go down. You will be generating guilt, and you will also have fear that what if somebody knows whatever I am doing is wrong? Will I be punished? So all these things you are collecting. By going along with what you like, you are also collecting guilt, you are also collecting fear. Your own self-esteem will go down in your own vision because you are doing something wrong. And further our Shastra comes and says you are also accumulating what is called papa, which will later on fructify as unpleasant experience. So in fact, whenever you go along with your desires, along with your likes and dislikes, and do something wrong, it is a very bad bargain. But still people go along with that because they do not analyze all these things, or they do not really think through it. They just go along with their emotions. But a spiritual person first has to lead a life of dharma, must have certain mastery over one's likes and dislikes. then one can analyze the reality of oneself. Because whenever you go along with your likes and dislikes, it is only implying that you are a wanting, small person. Now, that is actually not in keeping with the vision of the Veda. The Veda has a certain vision for you. It is trying to teach you that. In the vision of the Veda, you are already the limitless. You are a conscious being who is not limited by any of the things which you think you are. You are both the subject and the object. You are the reality of the subject and object, because this whole world can be divided into two things. One is the subject who is cognizing things, to whom everything becomes evident. All other things are objects. You are seeing different objects. Now the Veda is coming and saying in every cognition, the consciousness is invariable. So if you see a pot, there is pot consciousness is. If you see clay, there is clay consciousness is. If you see this laptop, there is laptop consciousness is. So in this, the consciousness is the invariable, and that is you really, and that invariable is the real thing. Whatever comes and goes is only an appearance, it's only a name and form. That's only mithya. And you are Satyam as the conscious being. That is the teaching. And as that conscious, there is only one conscious being which is the cause of this entire world. So you as an individual is actually the cause of this world. That is what we call a Mahavakya. It's an equation. Like any equation, it looks apparently contradictory. All equations have to be apparently contradictory. You cannot have an equation 1 equal to 1. Correct? It doesn't make any sense. An equation should always be at least 2 minus 3 equal to 5 minus 4. It at least looks different. Some symbols are different. Then somebody can do some math on both sides and understand both are actually identical. So we have to arrive at the identity from apparent contradiction. So the Vedic vision for oneself is what? You are the cause of this entire world. How can that be? The cause of this world is Ishvara. Ishvara is all-knowing, all-pervading, all-powerful. I am small-knowing, small guy. Everything is small. How can this be true? Means yes, now we have to understand. We have to see the equation on both sides. We have to arrive at the identity. So all this smallness, etc., are only a conditioning factor. They are there because of superimposing on yourself whatever is not really you. So we have to first do an analysis about who we are. Whatever I see is not me. That is a simple analysis. That is what is called Atma Anatma Viveka. Atma means oneself. Anatma means not self. And whatever I see is not myself because I am the seer, correct? I cannot be both the seen and the seer at the same time. So using this, if you see your body, you can arrive at the conclusion that I am not the body. If you are cognizing all your thoughts in your mind, even mind is not you really. So all the limitations of the body and mind are not really your limitations, but you superimpose it on yourself and struggle. So that is the teaching. That is the teaching. The pursuit to understand this teaching is spirituality. Spirituality is about knowing the truth of yourself. Science is the discipline where you try to know the truth of this world. But even in spiritual truth, we have to account for the world. We account for the world as mithya, as an appearance, as names and forms, which again is not against science or anything. Understand that. When we talk of, normally people think means science, spirituality, religion and all that means they always think there is some kind of an opposition between all these things. But what we have to understand is science has its own methods, its own means of knowledge, its own way of discovering knowledge. Spirituality is some other thing. It is a revealed knowledge. As long as you accept whatever the Veda says as a means of knowledge, there is no conflict, there cannot be any conflict between science and Veda or spirituality, because they are two different domains. They do not cross each other. Although there may seem like there is some apparent contradictions are there, they can be easily accounted for. Whatever is revealed by science can neither be proved nor disproved by the Veda. And whatever is revealed by the Veda similarly can neither be proved nor disproved by science. And as long as whatever is revealed by a means of knowledge can never be negated, we accept it as valid means of knowledge. Like even whatever colors are reported by your eyes, you accept them, correct? You do not ask for proof. Similarly, as long as it is not negated, whatever is revealed to you by a means of knowledge, we have to accept it as valid knowledge. That's how the whole transaction happens in this world. Otherwise, there will be infinite regress. If you want to validate one cognition with another cognition, then what about that cognition? Means it will go infinite regress. So, in fact, the point here I am making is very important, which all of you should understand. See, there is a misconception nowadays that everything they add on science, inner science, bliss technology, Vedic science, yogic science and all that. I think that is born out of a fundamental misunderstanding about what is science and what is our traditional Vedic knowledge. In fact, Veda, if it is scientific, we do not need Veda. I will just use science itself, correct? Whatever is revealed by science itself, if it is good enough, if the Veda is only restating that Veda is useless for me, why should I take all the pain to study Sanskrit, to study Veda, to try to understand what it is saying? So Veda should not be scientific, in fact. If it has to be useful to me, I don't want it to be scientific. Science has its own usefulness. Science is revealing to me so many things. That is one part. Veda is also revealing to me many things. In fact, both of them, whatever they are revealing, are unique to themselves. Correct? What the Veda is revealing, you know only from the Veda. What science is revealing to you, it is all a body of knowledge based upon inference and perception or enhanced perception. These two do not have any overlapping nature at all. Okay, they are two different sets. What is being revealed to me? And I don't want one to be the other, in fact. In fact, it is not like that. That is why Veda is an independent means of knowledge for us. So whatever Veda is revealing to me, I can only know through the Veda. Whether you accept the Veda as a means of knowledge or not is up to you. That is what we call Shraddha. Shraddha means, again, it is translated in English as faith, which again is wrong. Because faith means, they say that even if something is illogical, you should have faith in it. Even if something is contradicted by some other knowledge, you should have faith in it. Means that is not Shraddha for us. The Veda cannot contradict whatever is known. Even 100 Vedic statements saying that fire is cold, we cannot accept, because it goes against my experience, my perception, my knowledge. So whatever Veda reveals is the domain of the Veda. Whatever science reveals is the domain of science. They can neither prove nor disprove each other. So this point you have to understand very clearly. That means Veda cannot be scientific and science also need not be Vedic, I think. They both are independent of each other and they are both useful. They are both revealing to us truth. One is revealing to us the truth about this world, objective truth we can say, but even that has to, when you finally dig through enough, even science is going to the observer finally, because an observer has to collapse the quantum system and all that. They are also now struggling with understanding what is consciousness, what is the nature of this observer, all these things at a fundamental level. So that is also again coming back to Vedanta only in one way. But whatever Vedanta is revealing is primarily about things which are not available to science, and also about the nature of yourself finally as the subject. What is the truth of the witness, the subject as a conscious being? What is your truth? So that is the subject matter of spirituality of Veda. They do not really intersect each other. In fact, there can be some complementarities. Scientific knowledge can be a complementary thing for you to understand what Veda is saying. Okay, but Veda is not really restating whatever is known through science. It should not, in fact. Otherwise, it is not useful to me. Understand that fundamentally. So, all our traditional knowledge also, many of these things are called, we have to simply say they are Arsha, or they are coming from Rishis. Now, whatever Rishis have revealed, these are all our knowledge, which is coming through a Guru Shishya Parampara, correct? Through a lineage, unbroken lineage. And this knowledge has survived for long. Means it is anti-fragile. Nowadays they are talking about something called anti-fragile. Means this traditional wisdom, one should not discard that easily. Understand that. Although you may not understand the whys and hows of some of this traditional wisdom, they have been in vogue for ages and they have proved their worth. So that way we have to actually treat them with respect and consider our traditional wisdom first, in fact, I would say, in any situation. Of course, if it doesn't work, of course, we can always look into modern remedies and modern knowledge also is there. But we should not look down upon all these things in the name of modernity. We can be as scientific in our outlook as we want. Wherever it is the domain of science, we have to go along with science. And wherever science has no role to play, we have to go along with our traditional wisdom also. So both are important. In some cases, both may be having their own things to say, and we have to choose wisely. But when it comes to the truth of yourself and spirituality and all that, there science has really no big role to play, other than some supporting logic we can still take from some scientific knowledge. But other than that, whatever Veda says is the means of knowledge for us, and we have to go along with that. So this important thing I want to give, because I think many people are saying scientific because they are confusing validity with scientific. They think that by saying Vedic science or Veda is scientific, that whatever Veda is revealing is really valid. But validity is so different. All scientific knowledge need not be valid. In fact, science itself keeps on updating its knowledge. Whatever they said the day before yesterday, today they may say, no, it is not true. Even in this corona time, first they said HCQ is good, hydroxychloroquine. Then in between some study came and said, no, it is not good. Again they are saying, no, that study is not valid, it is flawed. So like this, science itself is changing the knowledge. All scientists, in fact real scientists, are very humble people because they know their limitations. They know that today their understanding is certain things, tomorrow it may change. Correct? So science has its own methodology. It is tried and tested, and we do have a lot of knowledge nowadays compared to what it was 500 years before or 300 years before. So we cannot deny that. We have to give the due for the scientific method and whatever knowledge we have gained as modern people now. But that doesn't mean we have to give up all our traditional wisdom or think that our traditional knowledge systems are invalid or anything. Our traditional knowledge is not scientific, but that doesn't mean it is invalid. And also it does not mean that whatever scientists are saying are all valid. I already told you, even scientific theories themselves have boundary conditions. And so they may not be valid under all conditions. So we should not confuse validity with scientific. So it is better to be clear in our terminology and do not confuse. You need not say yoga is scientific. it is useless, I think, because the scientist is not saying my way is the yogic way or anything, correct? Why are you trying to take the word scientific and use it for your yoga or Vedanta or anything? We don't have to use that. Our yoga is yoga. Veda is Veda. Veda is an independent means of knowledge. Yoga is again an independent means of knowledge. It is being revealed to us by Patanjali Maharishi, means it's all from the Rishi. And they have their own method of knowing things, and then they are passing that knowledge to us. You can do the yogic practices and validate it, whether it is valid or not and all that, correct? You don't have to look upon it as, because whatever our rishis are saying are not falsifiable. Understand that. It is not just a hypothesis or anything. But to know whether it is true or not, whether it is valid or not, you have to use. In fact, any means of knowledge is like that, correct? You cannot close your eyes and say that prove my eyes will see, then only I will open my eyes. Otherwise, if I open my eyes and I don't see, I will get heart attack. I will be too disappointed. So can any doctor come and tell you that yes, I can give you 100% assurance that your eyes will see? All they can say is no, in all our tests we think your eyes are all normal, please open, try to use your eyes, if you see you will see, correct? Or they'll say most probably you will see, 99% you should see, something like that. So like that, every pramana is like that. Every means of knowledge is like that. You use the means of knowledge and then you know what it is revealing to you is valid or not. So we have to use whatever our traditional wisdom is there. You learn that. In fact, it's all our responsibility as the new generation. We have a responsibility to learn our heritage, which is so huge. It's not something, it is not simplistic, it is not just a belief system also. Understand that. It is not that you believe these 10 things and then you will go to heaven or something. You follow me, you go to heaven. It is not simplistic like that. It is not some tourism promotion. See, most theologies are tourism promotion. They just say that you follow me and you accept me, then you go to heaven and heaven is like this and all that. They give some description of heaven. But we don't even know whether heaven will be like that, or even if you go there, you will really like it. If there is no cricket in heaven, we may not like. Or Bengalis may not like if there is no football in heaven, I think. I don't know. Or no Rasagulla in heaven, let us say. So whether you will like it or not, how do I know? But it's all only tourism promotion, correct? But spirituality is not that. Spirituality is right now and here I want to know the truth about myself. And there is a way of knowing that. There is a methodology of teaching. There is an unbroken lineage of Guru and Shishya. And we have the responsibility now to go and learn whatever our traditional knowledge systems are there. Not just Veda and spirituality itself, even otherwise I am saying. We have dance, we have classical music, we have Ayurveda, we have yoga. You take any branch, any discipline. We have traditional disciplines of knowledge. Ashtadasha Vidyasthana, we say, 18 and all that. Out of that, at least one you should make an effort to know. As whoever is young people, I am telling you. I myself was very fortunate that I met my Guru when I was only 23 years old. Then I went and studied with him. So if you study young, your faculties are good, your memory is good. You can sit and work hard. Don't think that all these things I will start studying after I retire or after I become 50-year-old and all that. At 50 years, you may not be able to sit and even listen properly. Whether your ears will hear correctly, your eyes will see correctly, you don't know. You can't take that for granted. So you have to put in effort to know our traditional knowledge systems, our heritage. We cannot be carrying it like donkeys, correct? It is something to be understood. It is something to be valued. And whatever it is capable of giving, we should actually try to get that result and enjoy it here and now. Okay, so that is what I would like to convey here. And there is some question, I think somebody wants to ask. What is the question? You can send the question in this chat. Yeah. Vishal has a question, I think. Anybody has any question, whoever else is listening also, you can just send it in the chat. Maybe we can continue for a few minutes. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions here. So anyway, let me just summarize this. So our topic was science and spirituality. So what I really want people to understand is science is based on perception and inference as means of knowledge. And spirituality, spiritual knowledge is also should be based on some valid means of knowledge, which is the Veda for us. Okay. And any means of knowledge has to reveal something unique to me. One means of knowledge, if it is only restating what the other is saying, then it is not really useful. If so, the Veda is revealing to me something unique about myself, my reality, the subjective truth of myself as a conscious being. That is not available through science. Science is revealing to me so many things about this world, about the truth of this world, about the building blocks of this physical world, which again is very interesting, which is to be pursued and understood also. In fact, even that understanding finally has to lead me to the truth of the subject only. Even science is also going there only, which our traditional knowledge systems are already revealing to me. And so I have to make an effort to understand all these things. I have a responsibility, in fact, having been born in this culture and in this country, it is my responsibility to learn, to appreciate our heritage and to get the benefit also from our heritage. Then only we are really then only we can really say this is my karma bhumi, dharma bhumi and all that, correct? This is the dharma kshetra, karma kshetra. This is my place. India, we are fortunate, whoever is born here is fortunate that you are born in this culture, in this country, and this knowledge is available here only. And everybody from world over wants to come and now learn all these things from India. And Indians also first have to take advantage of our own knowledge systems. So that is what, in summary, I want to tell. So thank you, all of you, for coming and listening to this Facebook live session. I hope it was useful. And even other, if you have any other questions later on also, I think you can, this video will be there in this site and you can just ask in the comment section of this video. So let us complete it with the prayer. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Om Tat Sat.